All right. Thank you, David. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 2025 Best Achievable Protection Kickoff meeting. I'm going to be handing this over to Sean Orr in a few minutes, who is our response technology lead here at Ecology, who will be giving us an overview of what Best Achievable Protection means and how it influences rule writing. Before I do, I'd just like to say thanks for tuning in today and engaging in this process. This really does take a community to make our industry contingency plan rules strong and to ensure that we're employing the best technologies, practices, and processes when responding to oil spills. We are recording today's presentation and we'll make it available to others who are not able to attend today. And we ask that you hold your questions until the end of the presentation. We only have about 10 slides to share, and we've built in a lot of time at the end for questions and open discussion. So for today's agenda, Sean will be reviewing what Best Achievable Protection, or BAP, you might hear it referred to, but what BAP means and how it influences contingency plan rule writing. Sean will also give us a sneak peek at the 2025-2026 rule writing timeline. And we'll finish with an overview of the 2025 BAP process, and then spend the remainder of the time in the survey where you'll be able to input your ideas for best achievable protection. And we'll also remain in the meeting for the remainder of the time to answer questions and discuss potential topics. And with that, I'll hand it over to Sean Orr, our response technology lead, to kick us off.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me, Matt?
Yeah, Sean, got you loud and clear.
Okay. So thanks for coming to our BAP conference, our workshop, however you want to call it. But I'm going to introduce myself, then I'm going to turn my video off because it blinks and distracts me. But I'm Sean Orr. I've worked in preparedness for several years. Took over for Sonia Larson as a response technology specialist, and working with response technology, our contractors, their applications, and our equipment verification program. So kind of doing that whole ball of wax. And Matt and I are kind of teaming up to work through this first important step of our BAP conference. So with that, I'm going to turn my video off so it doesn't blink at me. But so what is best achievable protection? We hear this term a lot in the oil spill preparedness and oil spill contingency planning regulatory environment. Generally, it's a 5-year review cycle that continuously works towards providing the greatest degree of protection achievable from oil spills. The 5-year cycle is intended to ensure that proven new responsible technologies and response processes are evaluated and incorporated into Ecology's oil spill contingency planning rules, and then subsequently into the oil spill contingency plans that industry is required to have and implements on a continuous basis. Ecology has been using a 5-year BAP process since the mid-2000s in various ways, and getting more detailed and better at it over that time period. Throughout this time, we've really tried to design the BAP process to facilitate a coordinated and collaborative approach to review our oil spill contingency planning standards. We use it to review and assess best achievable technology, looking at staffing, training, operational methods, advancements in response equipment. And it really works to inform our rule writing process. And that's the key there, is that we work collaboratively with people. We review what we've been doing, what the new technology is, things that are going on, and then that helps to feed into our rule development process. So next slide, Matt. So just an add-on here, just for folks learning or awareness. Ecology's requirement to promote BAP, it's driven from our laws. So 9056, 8846, all have several references to best achievable protection and technology in there, directing ecology to utilize that in reviewing their processes and their rules. And then our rules, which is our contingency planning rules for 173, 182, and then also our rail rule, further describe what best achievable protection is and what the process is that it should be followed. It actually gives a directive in there for us to follow that process. So as this is what this conference is. We're starting that process and working towards learning and providing the best input that we can to our rule development process. Next slide. So how does BAP influence rule writing? So it helps to identify planning and preparedness gaps in our current rule language. It directs us to look at those rules and see how they're working and evaluate really what has been going on since the last time we've updated them. It also provides a process to evaluate new and enhanced response tools and techniques, really look at what's been developed since that last cycle and how that can help us improve protection in this next go around. It provides recommendations for future rule language, and it really helps scope the future rule updates. So Matt and I've talked about this a lot, and we really want to make this where the rubber hits the road, get really valuable input, learn as much as we can, and have that feed directly into, the next scope of the rule and how that can help draft the rule language. So, we're really looking forward to working with folks and being able to implement this process and be able to come up with something that really hits the targets. So, next slide. So just a little bit of background on how does BAP influence rule writing. So we're going to look back to our 2020 rule update. So we had a new set of rules that became effective in January of 2020, and that resulted from a long process of working with people, a BAP conference, and so forth. And I won't go through all of these, but I did want to point out a couple of them, especially with non-floating oils. New rules became effective in 2020 for non-floating oils. It required plan holders to update plans and demonstrate how they will respond to non-floating oils. This was really driven from changes in oil transport over the last 15 years, including oil types, their points of origin, how they interact in the environment, the different types of waters they were being transported on and so forth. So the last BAP cycle really focused on how to better address the risk associated with these types of oils. And working through that process in a collaborative way allowed us to develop rules and help drive better planning over the last 4 years. Plan holders are now meeting a new standard and working with their contractors to ensure they have capability to respond. The contractors have provided more detail by updating their applications to ensure they can provide the resources and equipment needed to meet those standards. And our Northwest area planning process has developed response tools and so forth to help guide those responses. So we continue to learn about the risk of these types of oils, where they're being transported, what may be needed in the future. There's certainly more to learn and more to develop in this area, and I believe this BAP will be this process will be an important platform in an area of that for this area of concern. So that's one example. Another area I wanted to mention is community air monitoring. That was a big deal in the last couple BAP cycles. Air monitoring for both responders and the public was an important topic. This evolved back in 2016 when air monitoring concerns received a lot of attention in the Northwest area planning process. An area planning committee provided guidelines and recommendations that really helped us move in the right direction to improve air monitoring protocols and requirements. That started driving awareness and carried over into our BAP process. In the last rule, requirements were added for plan holders to have air monitoring protocols for responders and the public, especially in the area of community monitoring, equipment, procedures, planning for community air monitoring, what hazards to monitor for, how to communicate those hazards and risks are all part of those requirements. And this has really driven an uptick in plan holders having more immediate access to air monitoring resources. We see the planning start earlier, equipment shows up faster, and there's a stronger focus to get risk information to the public. It's also driving more work on behalf of agencies and contractors to have better procedures and equipment to conduct monitoring. One example of that is Ecology now has developed 2 rapid response kits that include 8 community air monitors that can be deployed as soon as we are notified of a need. Other agencies have also been able to increase their capability, and contractors have increased their capability to respond to those plan holder needs. So these rules, in certain ways, drive a lot of different things around the rule itself. Spill management teams was another important rule add in the last. The last rule updated and required plan holders to include key spill management team positions in their oil spill contingency plans. If those positions are to be filled by a contractor, then that contractor must be approved by the state through a primary response contractor or spill management team application. Since that rule went into effect in January of 2020, we have now 12 companies that are approved as a spill management team that can be cited in oil spill management teams. Some of our primary response contractors also have an approval to provide spill management team members. So that's a lot of new activity that Ecology has taken on and approved applications, and now we're monitoring that and implementing that through our drills and our coordination with industry. So not only does BAP drive rule development, it also creates awareness and drives other ways to increase protection through these other avenues. So those are some of the more important areas, but all of them are there's a lot of different rules that were developed. So next slide. So what is our upcoming rule writing timeline going to look like? The BAP process will inform our rule writing team and help Ecology scope the rule updates. The rule will then move into a more formal rule writing process that considers what we hear and learn from the BAP process. Matt is going to explain in detail a little later on how we're going to utilize BAP work groups to help us scope that rule. But the key things that we really are looking at are we want to get the rule scoped by July of 2025. And that means we're really finding those target areas that we want to focus on when we go into the rule writing process. We'll have some BAP work groups that will work on key issues. We hope that works kind of from March through May, where those work groups can kind of look at different issues and come up with some recommendations on how to scope that rule. Our BAP work group should wrap up recommendations by the end of May of 2025. And we'll take those and evaluate them, consider how to fit them into the process. And then sometime in the fall, we'll have a formal rulemaking announcement, which will include those key targets, and the rule development process will move forward in the winter or fall of 2026 with an adoption of a new rule or rule updates in 2027. And I just want to point out the note there that, the initial work group BAP process is not the only level of engagement and for discussions on the rule. Once the formal rule announcement is made, we'll still have, a year somewhere around that time frame to engage with our agencies, our tribal representatives, industry, the public, and other stakeholders to work on different issues and hear their concerns and find the best ways to move forward. So with that, Matt, I think I've went through generally what BAP is, what our timeline looks like, and you're going to focus now on kind of what the work groups might look like and then seeking our input.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sean. I'm not on mute anymore, am I? You can hear me?
No, you're good.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, great. Yeah, so as Sean described, there's several ways to achieve best achievable protection. It's described in our state codes, kind of how we can go about doing this. In the past, we've held BAP conferences that convened leading experts on response technologies. As Sean described, we've used that resulting information and the reports to inform rule writing. This cycle, it's a 5-year cycle. So this time around, it looks a little different than it did last time. So um, have an open mind when you hear about this process. It's not a conference. It's a different concept, which I'm going to attempt to describe here. But this current BAP cycle we're going to administer an initial survey to solicit areas of interest, areas of concern, or just simple ideas that can make our contingency plan rules more effective. We certainly have our own list that we've been compiling over the years, but we wanted to open this opportunity up to everybody, to the community, to see what people are thinking about the contingency plan rule. From the input that we receive, we hope to form 3 to 5 technical advisory committees or work groups. And these technical advisory committees will work on their subject matter areas from March through May of 2025. And as you might be comparing that to the timeline Sean just described, that's in order for us to get that scoping of the rule update in there by July of 2025. So during this time, from March to May of 2025, the committees will be researching and compiling best available information on their topics and developing very brief reports or just recommendations in whatever format makes sense, but essentially recommendations for how best to update the contingency plan rules regarding those topics. These recommendations will be due to the rule writing team by the end of May of 2025, so May 31st. And again, that's just to meet the July scoping deadline for the rule. And then using the information compiled by the technical advisory committees, the ecology rule writing team will develop the scope of the rule update. As Sean mentioned earlier, this needs to be completed by July. So covered that pretty thoroughly. Let's see here. The work and recommendations of the committees will continue to be used by the ecology rule writing team throughout the rule writing process. So they don't only influence the scope, but once the scope is set and we're engaged in the rule writing process, those reports and compiled information will really help the rule writing team, make informed recommendations and edits to the rule. Okay, so how do these committees get formed? The following criteria that you can see here will be used to assess the survey submissions, and we'll go over the survey here in a second. But the first one, does your idea or does the proposal truly enhance preparedness in Washington? That's our goal, is to enhance preparedness. Is it something that our federal and tribal partners can support? Does it reflect best achievable information or subject matter expertise? And we also must consider the cost of implementation and the burden to small business. So using this criteria, the survey submissions will be grouped by topics and committees will be formed for each topic. We're hoping to form 2 to 5 technical advisory committees to work on those assigned topics. And this is all kind of contingent and based on the input we receive through the survey. So we're kind of taking a guess here with our goal of 2 to 5 technical advisory committees. But we'll be flexible and we'll see what kind of feedback we receive from the survey. Members of the committees could include subject matter experts from federal, tribal, state, local agencies, non-governmental organizations, industry, academia. It's really open to anybody, but the key is to find the right mix of knowledge and experience to be able to produce informed reports and recommendations to get into the hands of the rule writing team. Okay, so here's the survey, and I'll share a link to this in a second. After I go through it, it's only seven questions, so it's pretty simple. First, your name. You'll notice a little difference when you access the actual survey. I had to add an additional question there for email because it wasn't automatically collecting emails on submissions. It was anonymous. So there will be a separate question 2 on the one that you access. Will ask for your contact information, your email. Then it'll ask for your affiliation. And box 3 is for your proposal. So you'll want to include the title and a description of your proposal. You can put a pretty long answer in there, so feel free to be descriptive, but we'll also be following up with you on your submissions. So if there's additional questions or information that we need to help assess your entries, we will be reaching out to you. And then question 4, it'll be question 5 on your actual survey, is which Washington Administrative Code does your topic most closely align? So as a reminder, all of this whole process is to inform a rule update to WAC 173182 and 173186. Those are the contingency plan rules. And so we want to know which area of those rules does your idea most closely align. Question number 5 is how much capacity do you or your organization have to support a work group if one is stood up around that topic? 0 being, I'm just throwing this idea out there, but I've got 0 time to commit to something. 10 is that you would very much like to be part of the working group, and you've got the time to do so. And then also the last question here is just who are the subject matter experts who should be on this work group, just to help us if you already have some ideas of names or just agencies, but that'll help us kind of do the legwork to make sure that each of these work groups that get stood up have the right subject matter expertise. And then, let's see, when you hit submit, it'll take you to a confirmation that your response was submitted successfully, and you'll have another button there to hit if you have another idea. So you can submit as many as you like. You don't have to submit them all today. Today is just a test to make sure you guys can access the survey. You're welcome to start submitting ideas today, but the idea is that we will be looking at all of the entries and trying to group them, compile them, and put them into categories that make sense for a committee to review by the end of March. Sorry, the beginning of March. So the work groups will be stood up in the beginning of March. And with that, we will put the link to the survey in the chat. David, so if you can toss that in there now, that would be good. And then here's the QR code to access the survey. We'll remain on in this meeting for the remainder of the time to help if you have any issues accessing the survey. If you have any questions about the presentation that you just heard, now is kind of the time to, put your hands up, take yourselves off mute, and yeah, we can have kind of an open conversation from here on out. And before I stop talking, I just know that people are kind of most likely going to be trickling off this call just because of the way that we're ending on a Q&A. So I just want to say thank you all again for your engagement in this process. It really does take all of us to make these rules right. And so the fact that you're here today is a huge first step. And then if you guys can give us your input through the survey, and if you're part of a technical advisory committee, all of that stuff really helps make these rules strong and protective. So thank you all. And with that, we'll go into Q&A. And David, if you want to stop recording, I'm going to stop. Now maybe I'll keep my screen shared, but I can't see if any hands are up. So if somebody could